Hi, friends. Welcome to Parashat Bo. We're now getting to the very exciting part of the Torah, the Parashiot of the coming out of Egypt and leading up to Har Sinai, leading up to Yitro. So we have lots to talk about. Most of this parasha, I would say, remains strong in the Jewish imagination because of the latter part of it, the commandment of Pesach, the beginning of chapter 12 in the book of Exodus. HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim, rishon hu lachem b'chodshei hashana. This is the first of months for you, but the word month, chodesh, is also the word for chidush, for newness, for renewal, for rebirth. This is the beginning of all rebirths for you, the first rebirth of the year. And that, of course, has to do with spring. Spring is going to come eventually for those in the cold climates, but we know this is a promise. HaChodesh Zelachem. By the time we read it again on Parashat HaChodesh before Pesach, we can be sure spring is on the way. Until then, we have to wait a bit. But this is a promise that it's coming. Now, the Baal Shem Tov took these verses very seriously. Chidush was what he wanted. The possibility of renewal is what Chassidut is all about. Yes, you can be born again. There is a renewal of life possible. That's what tshuva is. Religion is all about the possibility of human change and cultivating the possibility of human growth and ongoing human growth throughout life. When it came to Rosh Hashanah, for example, the Baal Shem Tov said about the verse, Tik'u b'chodesh shofar, ki chok li'Yisrael hu mishpat l'Elokei Yaakov. He said, blow the shofar of renewal. Tik'u b'chodesh, not on Rosh Chodesh, but blow the shofar of renewal. Why? Because the judgments of the God of Jacob have become habit, have become chok for Jews. They do them just because they learned to do them that way. Mitzvat anashim melumada, the prophet called it. Habit, religion of habit. That's what the Baal Shem Tov was fighting against. And that's what Chassidut itself came to combat. So here is the beginning of all those beginnings, the rosh of all those chidushim. And what is it? It's coming out of Egypt, of course. Coming out of Egypt means coming out of that narrow place. Mitzrayim is milshon Meitzar, the straits. Remember the delta. That's what the word Mitzrayim means, the pair of straits that come from either side and form the delta. That's exactly what the word means. But Meitzar also means the narrow places inside ourselves, all the things that fence us in. Min ha-Meitzar karatiya, says the psalmist. Min ha-Meitzar karatiya anane v'merchavya. I call to Yah out of my constricted inner places. And Yah answered me in breadth, in broadening, in opening up, in wide open spaces, in coming forth from that which squeezes me in, from that which narrows me. What is the narrowing? The narrowing is anything that keeps you enslaved. It's a narrowing of the mind. In early Hasidic writings, I find the phrase harchavat da'at quite a bit. The expansion, the broadening of awareness. The broadening of awareness. See the world from the broadest perspective possible. See it from without, like those photographs from space of seeing this little beautiful planet swirling through space. But see it also from deep within. See it from the other side of the world. See it not only from the perspective of Jews and Judaism, thinking we're the only ones that got something interesting going for us spiritually. No, no, no. The prophet tells us, B'chol makom mukdaru mugash lishmi. They are offering me sacrifice and incense everywhere, from the rising of the sun to the setting. People are worshiping God everywhere, and it's the same one. Let's go back to that recognition that the broadest Judaism once had, instead of remaining in the narrowed places that all those years of galut and suffering forced us to hold on to so tightly. That's what it means to be Jews in an age of freedom. The first commandment is, I am the one who took you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. The house of bondage means not just being slaves, but feeling like slaves, acting like slaves, thinking like slaves. Thinking narrowly is the result of all those years of bondage. All we could think of was ourselves and our own suffering. Now it's time to be beyond that. Harchavat hadat, the expansion of awareness, is sometimes called gadlut hamochin. That really means expanded consciousness. See the world through the lens of expanded consciousness. However you achieve it. There are now technical aids to doing that, but the Baal Shem Tov did it long before them by learning to open the inner eye. My teacher Hesho, as a motto on one of his books, wrote in Hebrew, Katnut hamochin mivi'a lidei galut hashchina. Narrow-mindedness puts the Shekhinah into exile. Narrow-mindedness, small-mindedness. Because we don't open our eyes wide enough to see. The Shekhinah is everywhere, in us and around us. But we're too busy with narrow concerns to see the big picture of the divine presence everywhere in everything we do, in every moment we live. That's why the rabbis had the daring to say about the tablets, instead read not charut al haluchot, engraved on the tablets. It was spelled a little bit of an odd way to help them. Cherut al haluchot, freedom on the tablets. The tablets do not come to take us from one enslavement to another. We are not to be slaves of God the way we were slaves to Pharaoh. Sometimes in the dark years of the Galut, it was hard not to think that way, and that's how they saw it. But no, it meant to be free. It meant to come out of the house of Egypt, to come out of the house of bondage. Liberation from what? Liberation from limited vision, from narrowness of vision. Liberation from excessive burdens of guilt. I love the Baal Shem Tov most because he wanted to create a Judaism that would liberate people from excessive guilt instead of burying them under it. His approach was the opposite of that of Balei HaMusar a generation or two later, 2 or 3 generations later. It was to liberate people from excessive worry about their sins. Yes, regret it, leave it behind, and serve God with joy. That's what you're supposed to do. Anything that keeps you from serving God with joy is getting in your way. Also, too much concern with the little details. With the details of halakha, with the details of observance, but also with the little details of life. Try to live in a broader place. A few years ago, there was a big movement, especially in Latin America, called liberation theology. I remember reading some of the original books of that teaching. It became highly political. It became, of course, and it should have become, it was good that it became, using the powerful forces of religion to fight against dictators, to liberate people from the Perons and the Pinochets and the oppressive rulers. But originally it also meant spiritual liberation, to liberate yourself, to know what's oppressive in life, what's keeping you in Egypt, and what are the ways to come out. The recognition of Yod He Vav He, the recognition of the presence of the divine throughout all of being, that which was, that which is, that which will be all at once. That's what it means to be free. Shabbat Shalom Uvorach. Welcome to Parashat Bo. See you next week for Bishalach. Take care.